have a quorum. Madam Clerk, please read the open meeting law if you could.
Pursuant to the open meeting law, any person may make an audio or video recording of this public meeting or may transmit the meeting through any medium. Attendees are therefore advised that such recordings or transmissions are being made, whether perceived or unperceived, by those present and are deemed acknowledged and permissible.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Before we get into the discussion for tonight for the special city council meeting, there really is only one agenda item on for tonight. We are going to go through this in a few quick moments. I want to thank all city councilors for getting on tonight. We really had not anticipated this meeting. We were trying to hold it off till September 11th, but we had to get it in by September 7th, which is in a couple days. So with that, I also do anticipate, if we get to it, 2 votes tonight. So there'll probably be a first one with a motion, and if not, and a second one as well. And with that, I'd like to turn this over to Ward 1 Councilor Dave McCarthy. Councilor McCarthy, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. President. Just to give everybody a quick Reader's Digest of what's been going on. This has been going on for months. This is phase 2 of the C Street project with DOT. Phase 1, of course, goes back to the Quincy Shore Drive, Fox and Hounds intersection. That was a great success. And doing some cosmetic repairs in regards to ADA compliant sidewalks, ramps, etc. So what this is phase 2 that runs from Ginger Betty's all the way down to Palmer Street, which is much larger. And this is the same type of approach that we had with phase 1, where we are looking at sidewalks, handicap accessibility, ADA compliant, etc. Poles that are in the way. C Street hasn't had a facelift forever. So this is some great improvements for the residents all the way down to Palmer Street. Just to kind of recap, this is a project where we're extending the improvements. And what we're going to vote on tonight is some eminent domain motions that we have to get through for the state and the feds. And we'll also talk a little bit about, I know that DOT and Jim can talk to the compensation part. On August 9th, also, we had a very successful open house at Quincy High School with DOT. Craig and Nancy were both there, along with myself, Jim, and it went very well. A lot of the residents, as always, when you start off with a project, have questions, and there's some concern, but once they understood that this is phase 2 of an improvement of C Street, everyone was on board, and it was quite successful. I want to thank Jim Timmons and DOT for that day. It was a long day. Not only did DOT meet individually and go over frontage with residents all the way down C Street, but Jim, I know, had done me multiple favors and met one-on-one with a lot of the residents that had questions. And the mayor also, knowing that this is quite a big section of C Street, was involved with myself all the time, asking questions on the time frame and the ability of getting out to those residents and making sure that they were aware of what was going on. Mailings went out. I know Jim did some legwork himself and did some drops. So we were notifying folks all the way down. But that day at Quincy High School was very productive in regards to that, to the entire project. This will also, and I'll blow my horn for Ward 1 a little bit, this will also give us brand new paving from deep in Howe's Neck all the way up eventually in the next year or so up to Quincy Shore Drive, which is quite impressive in regards to that. Again, that C Street corridor, especially the section we're in, is tired, and the improvements will be tremendous for the residents and for everyone coming in and out of Ward 1. I'd like to, if I could, I know people have questions, but I'd like to go ahead, President, and make a motion, of the first motion, if I could, on this project. So I'd like to make a motion to approve this. I'd like to hereby move that the City Council adopt Council Order 2023-090, taking the easement and interest described in Exhibit A attached to the order. So I put that in the form of a motion, President.
So we have a motion to approve made by Councilor McCarthy. Do I have a second?
Second by Bill Harris.
Seconded by Councilor Harris. Any discussion on the motion? Anyone, just please raise your hand if you're interested in speaking on this first motion. I'd like that the president likes to recognize Councilor Mahoney. Councilor Mahoney, you have the floor.
Just a quick question. I was not able to make the 8-9 meeting. Was there a presentation to, as well as to what the roadway is going to look like? Because I know the last time we had a meeting, Dave, was in 2019. A lot of people who I was talking to was not less about the easements and more about what the final plan was going to look like and how the traffic was going to work.
Yeah, if I could jump in.
Right ahead, Councilor.
Yeah, and again, this was all on the takings, to make the sidewalks compatible, poles, etc. I will be having another community meeting again. There's not much change from when we had it a few years ago. I'm actually going to sit at the end of the week and take another look at it one more time. But pretty much once we take a good hard look, and I don't think anything's changed much that we were talking about in regards to bike lanes and median strips that we're pulling out, etc., that I'll have another meeting before the end of the year and bring everybody in to take a look at it one more time.
Okay. And then because there were a lot of people that were concerned about, I think, the way that I was not able to see the plans, and what I remember from the plans, they kind of had a divider in the road and how often you could take a U-turn. I think that's what, and how you could get into driveways. That was some of the concerns I had. So you're going to have another meeting.
Yeah, we eliminated a lot of that and went with the rumble strip in the middle. I'm going to go back and double check with my friends from DOT and etc. Yeah, we addressed a lot of that all the way down from Ginger Betty's all the way down, because I could see that happening in some of the businesses, some of the areas down near Dunkin' Donuts, etc., and the hop route that are busy areas. And yeah, we're going to look at that maybe once or twice more before we move forward. But I'll have another meeting definitely to bring everybody back into it. But that'll definitely happen.
So your meeting, just for clarification, your meeting on 8-9 was mostly for just the eminent domain takings, correct?
Yeah, right now we're just on the eminent domain. We're looking at the cosmetics pretty much of C Street with the residents all the way down and the compensation that they'll receive in regards to some of the being permanent, which is small sections that'll be chiseled off for handicap ramps or widening of sidewalks and etc. And that'll be the second motion tonight. So those are the two motions. The community meeting looking at the overall road will happen later on, but this is just for this tonight.
Okay, so I have two other questions in regards to that, because there was a couple of people that I had talked to that were away on vacation, so I'm not sure if you were able to go back and meet with them. And then a second question that I had received was when they were talking about the portion of their property that might be taken, there was no plans really showing how much. When will that happen for them so they can have an understanding of what's going to happen for their property? And the reason why I asked this, because something got brought up over on Willard Street in West Quincy for a handicap ramp that was being put in. And I had to get Senator Keenan and Rep. Beers involved in that. So just curious.
If you get me those addresses, Anna, I'll get with Jim and DOT. And, Jim's been on the phone, like I said, a lot with folks and had him into his office, and we can address those locations on those folks that weren't there. We had a good majority of people though there, and a good majority of people talking to us about that street. So we can feel those things. I'm sure Jim Timmons has plenty of time to do that, right, Jim?
Thanks, David.
Yeah, not a problem, Counselor, not a problem.
All right, thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other counselors? Council Lee, I'd like to recognize Council Yang.
Thank you, Mr. President. All right, so I just had a couple of questions. Just to clarify, from the document, Jim, that you sent over, these easements are just to allow for access to properties during the project, right? And this is just for people to be able to then get access to the property for use of maybe placing construction materials or just having space to basically put things when they're doing the work. Is that correct?
Well, partially. There are some, those are the temporary easements, Counselor, and that's the vast majority. There are some permanent easements, and there are a couple of representatives from Mass DOT that Councilor McCarthy's been referencing. I'd like to ask one of them, who's he's been particularly helpful and skillful at explaining this stuff. The two folks who are working on this project for us are Nancy Knight and Craig Sheehan. Craig worked on phase one as well, so he's familiar with Quincy, and he can explain perhaps the permanent easements, just so you'll be clear on that. But you're correct in the respect that they're just easement interests, so he can perhaps distinguish the two.
Yes, certainly. Thanks, Jim. So, Counselor, thanks for the question. Great question. So, there's actually three types of easements that you had just referenced. So, the first ones are temporary easements. And those easements are essentially so that we can enter onto the property, install sidewalks, and when the project's over, behind the sidewalks, put loam and seed so that we can restore the properties and they have grass growing. The other one is temporary easements for driveways. So we want to make sure that the grading is right so that when we put in the street, that the water flows down the street and into the catch basins where it's supposed to go and not into someone's driveway. And secondly, we don't want someone bumping out and hitting the bottom of their car every time they pull out of their driveway. So those are the temporary easements. And on those easements, there should never be anything stored. Maybe overnight you might see some pipes for the next day. There'll be no equipment there. DOT doesn't want, let's say, to have a hydraulic line break and leak onto someone's property. That would be awful. So we don't allow the contractor to store their construction equipment in their vehicles there. They have to find a muster spot, and they will rent that as part of the contract. They have to go out and find that. The second type of easements that you're going to see are the utility easements. So we are placing some new telephone poles. As part of the project, DOT asked the city to acquire the utility easements so that the utility company can place their overhead wires. So some of it are what we call aerial trespass. If that goes over your property, there are certain rights accorded to you, air rights. So we ask that the city take those. The reason why we like to have the city take those is that we don't want any poles in the way when construction is completed. You used to go around and you'd see some brand new sidewalks, and you'd have poles in the middle of the street because the utility company didn't get around to putting them or relocating them. So we don't want that to happen. It's an unsafe condition. And the third type of easement, in a lot of these easements, as Councilor McCarthy had said, sometimes we need to have a little extra room for a wheelchair ramp. There are certain American with Disabilities Acts. You have to have a certain amount of clearance. So we want to make sure we have the clearance. And there are quite a bit of, and I think this was the biggest surprise for a lot of property owners, pleasantly. Some of years ago, when C Street was the sidewalks first went in, someone, whoever did it, poured the sidewalk on private property. So we, as part of a federal project, we have to have what we call a layout done. When our surveyor went out there, they found out that, hey, some of these sidewalks are on private property. The city is actually encroaching on private property. So we make sure that the city rectifies that situation. And it was something that happened years ago. The city is rectifying that situation by taking a permanent easement on something that is already today a sidewalk. So those are they're smaller in nature. They're what we call, you might hear sliver taking used, but those are the types of easements that we're taking. We have no complete fee takings. I know, once again, Attorney Timmons has made a lot of inroads with property owners and goes out there and speaks personally to them. So we really appreciate that at DOT.
Thank you. I appreciate the clarification. So then the other question I have too is during the actual work itself, do folks have a central point of contact, and do we have a central point of contact? I know Councilor McCarthy obviously would be the go-to, but as counselors, all of us do get phone calls from folks across the city, and so whether it's property owners or not, when we get questions about the project for its duration, do we have a point person we can go to? Do residents have a point person they can go to? And then specifically, do property owners along the way, if something comes up, something gets damaged, et cetera, right? Like, who is liable? And then also, again, who is that main point of contact?
Great questions. Thank you for asking them. So first off, yes, there is a point of contact. So every Mass DOT project has what's known as a resident engineer on site. For this one, because it's so long and so large, you may have two resident engineers who will have their information out there for residents to contact. Second of all, no contractor is allowed to bid on our DOT projects unless they're pre-qualified, and that means fully bonded and insured. So there is insurance coverage.
Okay, great. And then the last question I have is just for timeline. So when are we anticipating that this will start and when it will wrap up?
Another fantastic question. So we do live in New England. So constructions, we can be affected by weather during construction, and our construction seasons are only 7 or 8 months long, depending on the weather. So the way this works is we're closing out our fiscal year, which is why I asked Solicitor Timmons to get a city council meeting together that was not on the regular schedule. Fiscal year ends September 30th. So this is why we have to vote before then so that all the money gets allocated. That will go to advertising. Contractors have what's called 90 days to review all the bid documents and submit their bids. We open those up, and then we select the lowest bidder, and they have 30 days from then to proceed. That might put us in winter, so you won't see anything in January, February, but you'd probably see some activity out there in March and April when construction season is in full swing. We have every city, we ask them to take temporary easements for 5 years. The reason is, once again, we live in New England. We don't know what the weather is going to be. We don't know sometimes when we dig in what we're going to find, right? So that you never know what's underneath the ground. So we need that extra period as an emergency. We hope to finish up sooner than 5 years, but we just never know. So having said that, when we design these projects, we give them over to, we have a design consultant come in and they design everything. They bundle them up and they put them out to bid. And the contractor who bids on that has what's called means and methods. So they can decide how they want to construct it. We don't tell them how they need to construct it, what end they need to start it. They can look at it and say, all right, we're going to start with the sidewalks first. We're going to start in the middle of the road first. We don't know. They have that leeway to design it as they see fit, which is great because they're motivated to get the project done quickly, and it's the best way they see fit.
Sounds good. Okay, this was really thorough. I appreciate it, Greg. And Jim, I know the information you sent over was really helpful too in preparation for this. The last thing I'll just say is, Councilor McCarthy, thank you for giving us all this information, for putting this together. You had mentioned that, in the long run, ideally this will help, even stretch into Houseneck and fixing those roads as well. And I would just like to put a plug in to ask that we consider the road heading into Germantown too. And I think that, this area of the city really needs the help. And I know you've been advocating for that. So I appreciate it. Thank you all.
Thank you, Councilor Liang. Any other councilors? Seeing none, I just want to thank Councilor McCarthy, all the stakeholders in this, Mass DOT, Craig, and Mrs. Knight. Is that correct? There you are. And then, this is an integral part of the C Street project. Council McCarthy's done, and Mass DOT has done a great job with the intersection right-hand turn that's coming off of C Street onto Quincy Shore Drive. We're getting ready, obviously, for school tomorrow, and it will be very helpful for the right-hand turn as the traffic gets a little more heavier. As a Ward 1 resident myself that lives 2 houses away from C Street, and you'll be in the middle of this project, Craig, Mrs. Knight, this will be very helpful for not only the folks driving in their vehicles, but the pedestrians, as well as the business owners that live over here. I know we had great recommendations from Father Martin, which is at the church right there, the Our Lady Good Counsel. So I think this is going to be a great project, and kudos to everyone involved. And at the end of the day, it's about public safety. And I'm glad that the stakeholders of the federal and the Mass DOT is investing their monies to the city of Quincy. So thank you. With that,
this is your money too. This is all tax money. This is all your gas tax money that's going to you. So, so thank you.
Thank you. With that, we have a motion made by Councilor McCarthy. We have a seconded by Councilor Harris. And with that, Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Counselor Andronico,
Yes.
Counselor Kane,
Yes.
Counselor Harris,
Yes.
Counselor Liang,
Yes.
Counselor Mahoney,
Yes.
Counselor McCarthy,
Yes.
Counselor Phelan,
Yes.
Counselor DeBona,
Yes.
Counselor Devine,
Yes.
9 members.
9 members in the affirmative. Motion carries, and that is the first vote. I'm going to refer back to Councilor McCarthy. Go right ahead.
Thank you, Mr. President, and thank you, councilors, for the vote. C Street needs it, and thank you very much. The second motion is the compensation motion for the residents. So I'd like to make a motion to hereby move that the city council award the amount of $1,133,100 in damages sustained by every person identified in Exhibit A, attached to Council Order 2023-090, by reason of such taking, payable to each owner in accordance with the just compensation report prepared for each property. I put that in the form of a motion.
Motion made by Councilor McCarthy. Do I have a second?
Second.
Seconded by Councilor Phelan. Any discussion on this motion? Seeing none, Madam Clerk, please call the roll.
Counselor Andronico,
Yes.
Counselor Kane,
Yes.
Counselor Devine,
Yes.
Counselor Harris,
Yes.
Counselor Liang,
Yes.
Counselor Mahoney,
Yes.
Counselor McCarthy,
Yes.
Counselor Phelan,
Yes.
President DeBona,
Yes.
9 members.
9 members in the affirmative. This motion carries. That concludes our agenda items. Before we get to a closing here, I just want to let everyone know, our counselors, we will be back with meetings starting this Monday, September 11th, and we'll have back-to-back meetings at September 18th. So 2 Mondays in a row. They both start at 6:30 in the council chambers. And with that, that concludes tonight's meeting. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Jim had his hand
Motion to
up.
adjourn made by Council McCarthy, seconded by Council Mahoney. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
This motion is,
Aye.
this meeting is now adjourned.